We thought the Democrats were obsessed with President Trump, but Justice Thomas is a close second. This bill is simply the latest installment of the Democrats' campaign to delegitimize and attempt to intimidate the United States Supreme Court. Started when President Trump nominated Brett Kavanaugh. That was just too much for the left to bear, and they launched a smear campaign in an attempt to derail his nomination. The committee has held hearings that can only be interpreted as an attempt to lay the groundwork for an effort to impeach Justice Thomas. And today, the Democrats bring forward a bill that is completely unnecessary.
Intimidation is what Jim Jordan is talking about there on the House floor. Is it intimidation outside of folks' houses? Is it intimidation with emails, tweets, threats, telling people to go and attack, telling people to take aim, putting target shots on people's faces? Is any of that happening that Jim Jordan's talking about, intimidation from members of Congress? Actually, what Jim Jordan is talking about is a bill. Let's go to some details. Because speaking on the House floor on Tuesday, as you heard, he lambasted Democrats for trying to pass marriage equality via the legislative process, which he suggested was an attempt to somehow intimidate the US Supreme Court from overturning its own past ruling that established marriage equality as the law of the land. It's almost like we've seen them do something like this and then overturn something right afterwards because they think they can, they have that kind of push now that they've implemented all of their justices as the judicial wing of the Republican Party. So, in fact, though, continuing on, Democrats are taking up the bill not to intimidate the Supreme Court, but to preempt it from overturning rights for LGBTQ Americans, as Justice Clarence Thomas suggested that they should when he wrote that the court ought to overturn the landmark 2015 Obergefell versus Hodges ruling. Yeah, Jim Jordan did say that the marriage equality bill was completely unnecessary. It's almost like he ignored the fact that, again, one of the members of his party that's in the Supreme Court has suggested that that needs to be overturned. So let's just not listen to what he said, but at the same time, let's praise Clarence Thomas for saying that because that's really what they're doing. Need some proof? Because Thomas opened this door to overturning this myriad of rights in a concurring opinion to the 6-3 ruling on Dobbs, saying that the court should reconsider rulings that protect the rights to contraception, same-sex relationships, and same-sex marriages. Here's a quote. In future cases, we should reconsider all this court's substantive due process precedents, including Griswold, Lawrence, and Obergefell, is what Thomas wrote. Because any substantive due process decision is demonstrably erroneous. We have a duty to correct the error established in those precedents. It's weird because Clarence Thomas is talking about making sure we overturn those mistakes that we've made in the past. But there might be a few conflicts of interest when it comes to something like him worthy of potential impeachment. Let's watch more.
3 days after Election Day, the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas texted Trump White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, urging him to keep fighting the results. Do not concede, Ginny Thomas wrote. It takes time for the army who is gathering for his back. That text is one of 29 between Mrs. Thomas and Mr. Meadows, which he provided to the January 6th committee last year, according to a person familiar with the material. Quote, help this great president stand firm, Mark, she texted on November 10th. The majority knows Biden and the left is attempting the greatest heist of our history. In other texts, Mrs. Thomas pushed debunked conspiracy theories and offers advice for the Trump team.
Also, Jessica, I want to point out that as part of Clarence Thomas's decisions on which kinds of marriages are right and which kinds aren't, he didn't mention interracial marriage, which is something else that many conservatives hated when that was actually changed and allowed in this country. Maybe because he's in one. Weird how that works. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the hypocrisy there just couldn't be more evident. And what Jim Jordan said is kind of insane, right? The Republicans claim to love the Constitution, conservatives claim to love the Constitution, but what the Constitution establishes is 3 branches of government. And when there's an overstep of power of one of those branches, the intention is that the other one steps in. It's called checks and balances. And that's exactly what we have here. The Supreme Court has overstepped. They plan to take away more of our rights that they have ruled to affirm in the past. And so the right thing to do would be for the legislative branch to pass legislation to protect those rights. Our government was designed to protect the civil liberties that we all enjoy. So it's insane to have him say it's intimidation. That's like saying if I ride my bike to work instead of, taking public transit, I'm intimidating the bus. Like, no, it's just another method for passing necessary legislation for guaranteeing our rights. And so it's just comedic the way that they make it seem like the radical left is always up to something crazy. No, it's actually just our government achieving its purpose. It's not that radical.
It's crazy how that works. You know what? And the thing is, this is the constant loop. Yesterday we did Ronnie Jackson holding 2 AR-15s up in the air and shouting about how you need to come take it from my cold dead hands when no one's talked about that. The whole point is to continue to water these plants. Every day you have to make sure that your followers from this particular side of the aisle understand that they should be afraid someone's coming for them. Oh, you know what the other side's doing? They're intimidating. It's intimidation towards Supreme Court justices. You know what they're doing? It's constant fear tactics, but at the same time talking about how soft and in need of safe spaces that these same intimidating politicians are. Which one is it? Are they rabid, bloodthirsty, blood on their hands Democrats that are coming to take your guns away and also throw your children into sex slaves? No, they're that for one day, and the next day they're soft-handed libs that run around and can't do anything except for hug trees. It's really weird how the characterizations never really match up until they need to have a final new way to demonize certain folks. And now it's look at how they're intimidating with legislation. Legislation is radical in the United States of America, according to Jim Jordan. Good job, Jim.
Radical to have the government do anything at all, really, in the United States of America. And that's exactly why they need to make their platform about these made up things. You're exactly right that they're kind of watering the seeds of doubt that they've planted. And then when the right time comes, they sow the seeds, they harvest the crops, and they're like, oh my gosh, there's election fraud, everyone get in the streets. And I think that the right is eventually going to fall into the same trap that they were in the 70s, right before Nixon got elected. I think they're going to slowly realize that they actually need to have real policy, real legislation. The purpose of electing people to public office is so that, they'll help people get the public goods that they deserve and work for. People will eventually expect something of their government at some point and realize that conservatives haven't been giving them anything for quite some time.
No, let's hope, because all they've given them is bigotry and racism. So we'll see if there's something else that they can actually glom onto. So far, that's worked.